Hello and welcome to the IET 150 show, and what a week of shows we have for you. I'm Bobby Seagull, maths teacher, TV presenter and lover of all things engineering and technology, and with me for this epic week-long festival is the IET's very own celebrity TV star and current president of the IET, Danielle George.
Hi Bobby, thank you so much for that fantastic intro. I am not sure about the celebrity, but I'm going to give it a go this week, right?
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know me, I am currently the Associate Vice President for Blended and Flexible Learning and a Professor of Radio Frequency Engineering at the University of Manchester. And I was honoured to be made President of the IET in what is our 150th year.
150 years?
150, that's right. The IET and our anniversary gives us a fantastic opportunity to celebrate our rich history and the incredible work of engineers, technologists and difference makers from around the world.
Difference makers. I like that.
I like it. I like it too. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 150 show.
Hello and welcome to the 150 show from the IET's London home, Savoy Place. Over the next hour or so, we'll be talking about healthcare and the engineering and technologies that are transforming patient outcomes.
As we battle to beat the global pandemic that has occupied the news and impacted everyone's lives, we'll be discussing the developments of the recent COVID-19 vaccines and how pharmaceutical companies and researchers approach the challenge of creating effective vaccines in a world where we're seeing ever-changing strains of the COVID-19 virus.
But it's not going to be all about the pandemic, that's for sure. Healthcare technology is a huge area, so we'll be looking at lots of amazing news stories within this important arena. Here's one, Dan. What do you get if you mix baking with engineering?
Ooh, I don't know.
Bakeneering.
I like it, I like it.
We're really excited to be joined now by a resident chef and engineer, Andrew Smyth. He's going to be in the kitchen giving his take on baking with an engineering element. Andrew, can you hear me over your mixers?
Just about, Bobby. Yes, today I'm going to be looking at mechanical engineering and edible boats.
Oh, I can't wait for that. Oh, a nice cup of tea to go with that, Bobby. That'd be lovely, wouldn't it? Yeah. Another important area of healthcare is the technology that allows people to have a better quality of life. And we'll be exploring the world of assistive technology, from the two-wheeled self-balancing wheelchair to a fully adapted Lamborghini. Actor David Proud joins us to highlight some of the incredible tech helping people with disabilities become independent at home, at school and in the community.
There really is something for everyone.
Yeah.
During lockdown, I think most parents, and I'm sure that included you, Dan, have become familiar with conducting science experiments from the dining room table.
Oh, yes.
Throughout the week, we have the IET Young STEM Personality of the Year, Callum Daniel, with us to help inspire your budding engineers with experiments that you can conduct in the safety of your own home. Callum, what weird and wacky experiment have you got lined up for us today?
Today, Bobby, we're going to go up on the roof and do the Colamento experiment.
Well, it looks like an exciting experiment to start us off in our first show. Looking forward to seeing it.
I am looking forward to that. Later in the show, we're going to look at technology specifically aimed at females. As awareness and movements over gender inequalities progress, a new female health technology market has grown, more simply known as the Femtech market. We'll be discussing emerging technologies such as tracking wearables, artificial intelligence, apps, and non-invasive hardware to bring awareness to female health.
And on top of all of that, we also have Mark giving us his weather map of news, the daily rundown on engineering and tech news stories from around the globe. But first, a subject close to my heart. Science, technology, engineering and maths currently has a perception problem and is often misunderstood. There is a push to change this by focusing efforts on young people around the world who perhaps aren't aware of the incredible possibilities a career in engineering can bring. But many people still don't understand the work of engineers or appreciate how much society depends on their skills and innovation. One person who does, though, is the Institution of Engineering and Technology's Chief Executive, Mr. Nigel Fine. Welcome, Nigel.
Hi, Nigel.
Lovely to be here today. Thank you.
It's so lovely to see you. Like, literally here. You're not, on a computer screen. Now, it's 150 years of the IET. What exactly does the IET do? And how, after 150 years, do we still remain relevant to modern society?
Dan, we do a huge amount, but we try to encapsulate it in delivering against our vision, which is very simply working to engineer a better world. And we deliver it through inspiring the next generation of engineers and technicians, informing the engineering community about the developments in engineering, and influencing people who have to know about what engineers do and appreciate the work of engineering. The IET today is not the same as the IET 150 years ago. Yeah. We keep reinventing ourselves, and we need to reinvent ourselves as the world around us changes so that we are appealing to newer audiences all the time.
Is one of the main roles of an institution like this to share ideas, knowledge, and enable collaboration?
Absolutely, Bobby. It's really about the ability to bring people together, to share knowledge, information, and really give opportunities for difference makers to really do what they do best, to communicate about the engineering. And one of the stories I love talking about in this building is that Sir Charles Kao, who was one of the first developers of fibre optics, presented his academic paper to this institution many decades ago.
Oh, really?
And that knowledge is the backbone of what gives us the ability to send data and information all over the world. And we wouldn't be able to broadcast these events without that work that was done here at the IET all those years ago. So the ability to come here, share information, share knowledge, build upon it, brings products and services and activities to a global audience.
Yeah. And it's the global thing that's really important, I think. For me, the IET has given me this amazing opportunity to connect with people that I probably would never have met. And I think quite a lot of members feel the same. It's such a great thing to be able to talk to other engineers around the world. And the more the IET can do that, the better, I think.
Our job is really to connect people, to let people to network, to meet people. The pandemic has been terribly difficult for many people, but it's also opened us up to a global audience. We're now able to communicate openly with people in many, many different countries that perhaps in the past we didn't really access, or people couldn't access the benefits of the IET. Yeah. It's leveled up. Everybody can actually now share information. They can be in the same audiences together. They can contribute, and they can really enjoy and share experiences about engineering and technology. It's a fantastic new world, despite the difficulties we face.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nigel, it's all about getting people excited. It's getting people enthused, from the youngest school children right through to grandparents, and trying to get people to understand that everything has been engineered.
Yeah.
Well, the great thing is we got some wonderful stories to tell. There's so much that the natural world requires of us in terms of helping society, helping people do things in better ways than they could possibly do without engineering. And what we need to do is always find ways to tell those stories, to bring it to life, to excite and inspire young people, tell those that influence young people about the wonders of engineering, the magic of STEM. And those are people like teachers and parents who are particularly important and influential in actually shaping the careers of young people. The IET has this wonderful ability to facilitate all this, to share knowledge, to bring people together. But we need to work in partnership with teachers and parents.
Yeah, definitely. I love to see your passion. It's great when so many engineers talk, we all talk with our hands, don't we? And it's so lovely to see your passion come across, Nigel, for engineering. Thank you so much for joining us. It's our 150th year, and we had lots of different plans, didn't we, to do some different things. But I think it's given us such a great opportunity to do different things, hasn't it?
Yeah. Dan, Bobby, I mean, this has been a really difficult year. We could never imagined the pandemic when we started the plans for the 150th year, but the team have done a brilliant job to reinvent the way in which we are sharing our celebration and legacy of the 150 years. I want to really take this opportunity to thank many people around the world, volunteers, members, partners, for work that they have done to support frontline medical services, for example, in helping to bring technology to help deal with the pandemic. I know there is still a lot of difficulties around the world, but the IET will continue to do its bit in helping all of society cope with the pandemic, learn for the future, and in the process, share the wonders of our special anniversary year as well.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Wise words, Nigel.
Yeah, thank you, Nigel, and a happy 150th birthday to the IET.
Thank you so much. We're going to enjoy it and celebrate it.
Certainly are. Thank you so much, Nigel.
Thank you. Throughout today's show, we're going to be talking about healthcare and the engineering and technologies that are transforming patient outcomes. We've got an amazing lineup of guests, so please stay with us. Our first guest has become somewhat of a household name, having been an essential part of the team that's developed the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine. If she hadn't gone with her instincts, the latest coronavirus vaccine to show highly promising results might never have been.
Professor Sarah Gilbert has been making and testing vaccines designed to induce T-cell responses for over 10 years, chiefly using antigens from malaria and influenza. Several of the vaccines developed in her laboratory have progressed into clinical trials, and we are absolutely thrilled to be joined by the fabulous Professor Sarah Gilbert. Thank you so much for joining us, Sarah. I know how incredibly busy you are, so we're absolutely honoured to have you here.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Thank you. Professor Sarah, you must be immensely proud of your work in helping humanity come through this pandemic. How did you become involved and leading this amazing work in vaccinology?
Well, it's been a long journey to get to where I am now. I've actually been at the University of Oxford for 27 years, and almost all of that time working on vaccine development, starting with ideas about how to, as you said, make vaccines that would induce a strong T-cell response as well as an antibody response, which is what we normally think of inducing when we make a vaccine. But then also some of the pathogens, the viral pathogens that can cause outbreaks that we don't hear about so much, but they're out there and they occasionally cause outbreaks in people. And one of those was the Middle East Respiratory Syndrome virus, and that's a coronavirus. So when the SARS-CoV-2 virus first started causing infections in China, and we got to hear about that very early in January 2020, because it was a coronavirus, we already had a template to follow to start to make a vaccine against it as quickly as possible.
And the public think, sometimes I think with the COVID-19 vaccine that that it's just been, a few months, and you guys have just been working on it for a few months. And as you say, this is over many, many years, isn't it? How do you get to the point, though, where it can be safely used by society?
Well, we use what we call a platform technology. So it's a way of making vaccines that we can use to make lots of different vaccines. And we do a lot of work on the technology. So we understand it. We've used it in a lot of other clinical trials for vaccines against other diseases. And that all helps us in being prepared to develop a new vaccine when we need to. So there's already a lot of information about how to manufacture the vaccine, how to test it before 2020. Yeah. So that enabled us to get off to a really quick start. But then when we start making the new vaccine, we have to manufacture it ready for clinical trials in a very, very controlled fashion. And there's a lot of testing. All of the raw ingredients are tested very thoroughly to make sure that they're what they should be and that they aren't contaminated with anything else. And at all stages of the vaccine manufacturing process, it's very highly controlled. And then we have to apply for permission to start testing the vaccine in people in what we call a first-in-human study, the first time people get immunized with this particular vaccine. And then eventually we need to find out if the vaccine actually stops people getting infected with the virus. And that's what we do in a phase 3 trial. And we had about 24,000 people enrolled in that trial in multiple countries. And eventually the statisticians break the code and they see were the infections occurring in the people who had the vaccine or the placebo, and then we know how well it works. And now what's really important is we're getting what's called real-world effectiveness data. So because the vaccine's being widely used after it was licensed for emergency use, we're able to track how well it works in the over 80s, the over 70s, the over 60s that started receiving it in the national rollout. And it's been extremely effective at preventing people, even the oldest people who had it, from going into hospital and from preventing severe disease. And we've also seen that in people who've been vaccinated, even if they do get infected, they have a mild disease and they shed the virus for a shorter amount of time. So that reduces opportunities for transmission. So all of this data gets put together so we've got a thorough understanding of how the vaccine's working.
Really systematic process.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you can cast your mind back to when you first heard about COVID-19, what was you and your team's reaction? And did you think at that time that you'd be able to make such a significant difference to people?
Well, at that time, when we first heard about a cluster of pneumonia cases of unexplained cause, it was interesting to me because I work on vaccines against viruses that cause outbreaks. This could be an outbreak and it could be a new disease, but it might not have been. Following the information coming out, and gradually over the course of a few days, we found out that it wasn't any of the known viruses, but it was a coronavirus. And so I was thinking with my team about getting started straight away to make a vaccine. And AstraZeneca, who licensed the vaccine from the university and took on the large-scale manufacturing, they started all of that work before we knew that the vaccine was effective, because we had to have that underway as quickly as possible. So the principle is, as soon as we could do something, we did, even though we didn't know if it was actually going to be required.
So we've had this fast-spreading virus and, within a year created the vaccine. As an engineer, what I'm really interested in is what role did technology play in that? And would it even have been possible in 10 years ago?
We've certainly used technology to speed up the way we do some parts of the process. So one important change that we've made in the past couple of years is in the very early development of the vaccine in the lab, where we have to know that it's exactly the right thing genetically before we start to produce it in larger amounts. And that used to be something that took a long time. But now we use next generation sequencing, whole genome DNA sequencing. We can overnight get a read of everything that's in our vaccine preparation and find out if it's exactly as it should be. So that aspect of testing has really speeded things up, because we were able to go very quickly from designing the vaccine to making a small stock that we could then take into our manufacturing facility and get ready for clinical trials. With our volunteers, we take blood samples at multiple times and we separate it into the cells and the serum for different immune testing. And we used to just do all that with hand labeling. So now everything is programmed and barcoded, and we can use a reader to tell us what's in this tube, which person is it from, what date is it from, how long is that after they got vaccinated, and so on. So that's made handling of large numbers of samples, which we've needed to do, a lot more straightforward.
Sarah, I think we're in a different era now as well. 10 years ago, we would never have heard about individuals and teams working in your field. And now, you and your team are household names, aren't you? Do you think that the pandemic has made people think differently about the work that goes into creating drugs and vaccines? And do you think we'll see more collaboration like this in the future?
Well, what's been really important is the collaboration between different bodies, so between universities and government and pharmaceutical companies, all working together with the shared aim. And that was the way everything worked last year. We all wanted to achieve the same thing. And so we all did what we could together to make that happen, to have a vaccine which was very safe and highly effective, tested as quickly as possible and available for use. And I would like to see more of that in the future. There's a lot of innovation in universities, which doesn't always get out into the real world and get used. And that's something I'd like to see more of. And obviously it's quite an expensive thing to develop these vaccines and do the clinical trials. So we have to prioritize how are we going to spend research funding to make the best use of the innovations that can come out of the universities and can then protect human health.
Yeah. My daughter and I read books together called Women in Science. In a few years, I want to see a Women in Science book with Dr. Sarah Gilbert, so I can read that to my daughter. Thank you so much for joining us, Sarah. It's been a privilege to talk to you.
Thank you very much.
I remember, it used to take decades to create new vaccines, and we never had the media attention that we do now with it. I think it's a real positive. Some good things can come out of the pandemic and what we've had over the past 18 months.
Absolutely. So technology has really made such a difference. If this had been, let's say, 20 years ago, it would have been a different story.
Absolutely.
To really understand how technology makes a difference to patient outcomes, we're joined now by the chairman of the IET healthcare sector and presenter of the Evidence-Based podcast, Dr. Peter Bannister. Welcome and hello, Peter.
Hi, Peter.
Hi there. Hi to you both.
Hi. So firstly, Peter, how did you get into the healthcare industry in the first place? And tell us a bit about your background.
the journey that got me to where I am today. It was actually a kind of a love of movies, and in particular movies like Labyrinth and Star Wars, which had lots of puppets and animatronics, and I was really into those as a kid. And over time, that developed into a real fascination with robots, which was really helped by Terminator 2 when I saw that. And when I got to university, I studied robotics. And part of robotics is what's known as computer vision, where you use cameras to make sense of the environment around you to make decisions. So for example, driverless cars use computer vision to navigate. And I got into that, and then part of that led me to what's known as medical imaging. So doctors use images, x-rays, ultrasounds, photographs to help them make a diagnosis. And what they're doing when they look at those images is they are trying to extract information. And in many cases, you can get a computer to do the same thing. So I studied how you could get computer programs to analyze images and extract useful information which clinicians could then use. And that's what I think got me into the healthcare sector.
And I'm really pleased you did, because you also chair the IET healthcare sector panel as well, don't you? And what role do you think engineering plays, or how big that role is in addressing society's healthcare challenges?
I think the last 12 to 15 months have really brought home what a big role engineering has in healthcare. There's numerous examples. When the pandemic kicked off, we had Formula One teams coming in to help build ventilators. We had people 3D printing protective equipment at home. We also had manufacturing and artificial intelligence helping with the rapid development of vaccines. So there was a huge reliance on engineering to help address the pandemic, but there was also the reliance on technology to help people keep living vaguely normal lives. We all are very used to now living on video conferencing calls, and clearly that's a form of technology. So I think it also played a really big role in terms of trying to maintain normality as well as dealing with the effects of COVID.
Delving a bit more into that, like what lessons do you think that we as a nation have learnt as we emerge from the pandemic?
It's quite tempting in healthcare to deal with very specific, narrow problems. You design a drug or a device that treats a particular condition. But there's a whole range of problems that we can tackle with technology. There's mental health, there's physical isolation if you're elderly or unable to move. And actually, I think being locked at home for 12 months with limited social contact has really, for me, brought home an understanding of how important it is that when we use technology to help with healthcare, we look more broadly, using a video camera to talk to your GP. Decentralized clinical trials is another area, and so clinical trials are used to test out new treatments, new technologies, and they generally require you to come into a hospital and be examined and have data recorded. Now, you can't do that in COVID, partly because you can't go to hospitals, and secondly because the hospitals are busy dealing with people who've got COVID. So it's really accelerated the use of technologies, wearables, which people can then use to contribute to clinical trials of new treatments, including vaccines for COVID itself.
Yeah. Peter, time to get your crystal ball out. What do you think the healthcare industry will look like in 10, 20, 30 years' time? What advancements are we going to see, do you think?
I think one of the things we should be shooting for is making sure that technology benefits everyone. And the IET as a global organization is in a really good position to encourage that and help make that happen, because we can design fantastic technological solutions for people who already have access to good healthcare. But I think the real benefit of technology is if we use it to close the gap in terms of healthcare provision for other countries where they maybe have very skilled healthcare professionals, but they just don't have the equipment or the resources needed to deliver that at scale. So I think that scaling up clinicians with technology, working in tandem is a real opportunity, and I think we're heading in the right direction.
Brilliant, good to hear. Now, you have a fantastic podcast series with the IET, which is amazing, The Evidence Base. Are we going to get a second series?
Absolutely, definitely series 2.
Yes, I'm glad to hear that. Brilliant. Oh, thank you so much for joining us,
It's been my
Peter.
pleasure.
It's been brilliant.
Thank you both.
An amazing insight about what the future could look like. But all of this relies on confidence and trust in healthcare for the public and making sure they stay involved and engaged at every stage. Our next guest, Nick Hillier of the Academy of Medical Sciences, has joined us to talk about the importance of patient involvement. Hi, Nick, and welcome.
Hi, Nick. We're so pleased you can join us on the sofa.
It's great to be here.
Yeah, it's really great to see you here. The last year has had a huge effect on people globally. And one of the things that's really come to the fore is how the pandemic has affected people's mental health, unable to see friends, family, relatives, attend weddings, go to funerals. But for young people, without experience on their side and a lack of control, it must have been worse for them.
Yeah, we've been working with young adults throughout the pandemic, actually, on a project using a comic book to help them understand the pandemic and how it's impacted on them. And it's actually been some of the most profound stuff I've heard throughout the whole process, hearing from young adults just how much it's impacted on them. There was a young guy who was talking about he'd walked to school with the same group of people every day for years and years and years, and then suddenly, literally overnight, he had that taken away from him. They never got that rites of passage that we kind of all take for granted, and I think the pandemic has really taken that away from people. And also, I think it's really easy to assume that young people have a structure around them, you know, family support that can help spot signs and help them access services. But not everyone has that. Lots of people, you know, young people live on their own. People were off at university when the lockdown hit. So it's just really important that we connect with different communities and hear what they have to say in order to work out what we need to do to help them.
Yeah. And, you know, we've got a global vaccination programme now, and certainly here in the UK, we've got that possibility of greater mixing during the summer, haven't we, and into the autumn. But what are the risks from a healthcare perspective, and how should we prepare ourselves for that?
Things we've heard so far, I think people, you know, the vaccine's great, but people are starting to think about variants and will my vaccine work and what should I do? I think a lot of people are really concerned about long COVID. You know, most people know someone who has suffered from kind of longer impacts of COVID. What do we do? How can we support those people? And again, that's just a great example for researchers, healthcare professionals, and the long COVID community to get together to sort of discover all we need to know about this new disease, this new condition, and to work together to find the right solutions.
Absolutely.
Brilliant.
Nick, why is it so important to involve patients and members of the public in clinical trials?
So I guess one of the sort of interesting things about the pandemic has been there's been this huge focus on the vaccine. You know, everyone around the world has been looking at this and hearing about clinical trials and how do people participate. The test events that we've had in the UK over the weekend, you know, people are like, oh, I can see I can participate in something. I can play a role in how science is done. And so I think, you know, it's been a great opportunity for people to see the difference that they can make. And that's not just involving them at the end in the clinical trial to see if a medicine is safe and if it's effective, but it's about going right to the start and getting people to help us define the questions. How do we do the research? How should it be done? Let's co-produce it with people to make sure the best research comes out at the end. And also to keep people involved when we get to communicating about that research. You know, when we're thinking about public health messages, if we involve the people that we're trying to target in those message development, they're going to land better. People are going to be able to use the information in a way that's relevant to them.
Thank you so much, Nick. We really appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Nick.
Well, I find it incredible that in the last decade, vaccines and drugs are being created, tested and distributed globally in what seems like such a short space of time. It's really important, isn't it, Dan, that programs, not just like this, but the wider media, ensures that society understands that there are lots of phases to bringing these things to market, and that scientists and all those involved understand safety. Engineering and tech have played a massive part in that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what we've just heard highlights the importance of engineers and technologists in the healthcare sector, doesn't it? You know, and it's important that not only the message of this amazing work reaches society, but also that it inspires young people who enjoy and love science and technology at school to realise how much part of one of these teams can make a difference to the world. You know, engineering is all about finding solutions to other people's problems, and if we can get this message out there, then there'll be many more fantastic solutions in the future. The future is going to be bright for us, isn't it? So, Bobby, what's happening next?
Well, Dan, we've got loads more examples of how engineering and technology is really helping people in their day-to-day lives. We've got some great news from around the world about engineering and technology, and hopefully we're learning about buoyancy through Andrew's Bakeneering. But right now we've got a fantastic film about one of the biggest medical inventions that most of us now take for granted.
Absolutely, Bobby. This is one of our Difference Maker series. I absolutely love this series. They really do define how an inquisitive and problem-solving mind can make a huge difference.
Marie Curie was a physicist, chemist and pioneer in the study of radiation. She and her husband Pierre discovered the elements polonium and radium, for which they and Henry Becquerel were awarded the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1903. Born Maria Sklodowska in 1867 in Warsaw, Poland, she was the youngest of 5 children. After her mother died and her father could no longer support her, she became a governess, reading and studying in her own time to quench her thirst for knowledge. Up to this point, her lack of money prevented her from attending higher education, but when her sister offered her lodgings in Paris with a view to going to university, she grasped the opportunity and moved to France in 1891. Marie entered Sorbonne University in Paris, where she read physics and mathematics, discovering a deep passion for the subjects. It was in Paris in 1894 that she met Pierre Curie, a scientist working in the city whom she married a year later. The Curies became research workers at the School of Chemistry and Physics in Paris, where they began their pioneering work into the invisible rays given off by uranium, a new phenomenon which had been recently discovered by Professor Henry Becquerel. He had shown that the rays were able to pass through solid matter, fog and photographic film and caused air to conduct electricity. Marie also noticed that samples of a mineral called pitchblende, which contains uranium ore, were a great deal more radioactive than the pure element uranium. Marie was convinced she had found a new chemical element, but other scientists doubted her results. Pierre and Marie set about working to search for the unknown element. They ground up samples of pitchblende, dissolved them in acid and began to separate the different elements present. Eventually they extracted a black powder 330 times more radioactive than uranium, which they called polonium. Upon further investigation, the Curies found that the liquid left behind after they had extracted polonium was still extremely radioactive. They realised that pitchblende contained another new element, far more radioactive than polonium, but present in even smaller quantities. In 1898, the Curies published strong evidence supporting the existence of the new element, which they called radium. But they still had no sample of it. Pitchblende is an expensive material because it contains valuable uranium, and Marie needed a lot of it. She got in touch with a factory in Austria that removed the uranium from pitchblende for industrial use and bought several tons of the material. Marie set about processing the pitchblende to extract the tiny quantities of radium. This involved working on a much larger scale than before with 20-kilogram batches of the mineral. The work was heavy, physically demanding and involved dangers the Curies did not appreciate. During this time they began to feel sick and physically exhausted. Today we would attribute their ill health to the early symptoms of radiation sickness. At the time they persevered in ignorance of the risks, often with raw and inflamed hands because they were continually handling highly radioactive material. In 1902, Marie eventually isolated radium as radium chloride, determining its atomic weight. In 1903, Marie and Pierre were awarded the Nobel Prize for Physics, jointly with Henry Becquerel for their combined, though separate work on radioactivity. In the same year, Marie passed her doctoral thesis in physics. In 1906, Marie's life was struck by tragedy when Pierre was killed in a street accident after being knocked down by a horse and cart. Her indomitable spirit, however, kept her working, and she went on to succeed him in his chair as professor at Sorbonne, as well as carrying on lecturing where he had left off. Her determination and remarkable endeavours led to a second Nobel Prize in 1911, this time in chemistry for creating a means of measuring radioactivity. During the First World War, Marie Curie worked to develop small mobile X-ray units that could be used to diagnose injuries near the battlefront. As director of the Red Cross Radiological Service, she toured Paris asking for money, supplies and vehicles which could be converted. In October 1914, the first machines, known as Petit Curies, were ready, and Marie set off to the front. She worked with her daughter Irene at casualty clearing stations close to the front line, X-raying wounded men to locate fractures, bullets and shrapnel. After the war, Marie continued her work as a researcher, teacher and head of a laboratory. She was also the recipient of many honorary degrees from universities around the world. She visited Poland for the last time in early 1934, and a few months later, on the 4th of July 1934, she died in France from aplastic anemia, believed to have been contracted from her long-term exposure to radiation. Marie Curie is remembered for her discovery of radium and polonium, and her huge contribution to finding treatments for cancer.
Goodness me. We take technologies in hospitals for granted now. There are so many amazing machines now helping us to have better lives.
Yeah, I know, yeah. And there's so many different technologies, devices and pieces of equipment that are really helping people, aren't they? But it's not just that. It's about how we design towns, cities, and the very buildings that we live in day to day. It's about how engineers understand and create solutions for everyone in society. We live in an age now where there shouldn't really be difficulties for anyone to find a toilet, get on a train, to use an automatic hand sanitizer.
Well, Dan, exactly on those lines, our next guest is actor and writer David Proud. David is featured in shows such as EastEnders, Secret Diary of a Call Girl, and most recently, ITV's Marcella. As well as a writer for Coronation Street, he's also the face of the IET's Assistive Technology series on YouTube. Hi, David. It's really great that you can join us. You've become well known not only for acting, but also for highlighting the difficulties of design and engineering in your day-to-day life that stop you enjoying things that many others take for granted.
Yeah. It's for me. I was a little bit closed off to new design and new technology, and I was in the same old wheelchair that I'd had for years and stuck in my ways. And I suddenly then started to see things that could be incrementally better, different things in your life that you think actually you can make it a little bit better. So and then I became a real geek about it, and then it's obsessing about it. Then it's like looking at all the latest technology and all the gadgets and all the gizmos, and now I drive my wife crazy going, oh look, they've just released this thing, and she's like, okay, not another gadget. But it's just I think for disability, technology can bridge that gap between accessibility and allow you to really experience as much of the world as physically possible.
Well, you're in good company here, David, with your love of gadgets, for sure.
David, we can see there are some amazing technologies that are available. And I often have conversations with my elder brother because he's also in an electric wheelchair. So what are the things that still really make everyday life more difficult for you?
Well, there's this thing called the social model of disability, which is really complicated, but it's a way of looking at disability that isn't about medical, it's about the environment around you. So it's like the Matrix. If you drop me in a world where there's ramps and lifts everywhere, my disability actually the impairment has less of an impact. So I still live in quite an inaccessible world. And what I do, I need the technology to completely bridge that gap. So it's really trying to encourage lots of companies to go, is there a way that we can utilise this to make disabled people's lives better?
What are some of the things that you've seen recently that have really got you geeking out about tech?
It's everything from connectivity and Bluetooth and wheelchairs to simple things like how a bag can attach to a chair. And there's one at the moment where you can attach it to the back so you don't actually have to have your hands, in any way or hold a bag or anything. So sometimes some really small, simple things. Yeah. I got a cup holder for my wheelchair that attaches to and that was a revelation, to be able to actually have a coffee cup and move at the same time because I wasn't holding it and wheeling with one hand. So it can be really, really advanced, or it could be really simple, and that's the beauty of it, I think.
Yeah. Now, I've heard on the grapevine that one of the things you're really excited about, and it's been a lifelong dream, and unfortunately it was cancelled this year due to the pandemic, is that you're going to attempt a solo summit of Mount Snowdon using the latest tech. Really?
Yeah, it sounds bonkers, but my wife is really adventurous. And it's kind of heartbreaking that there's times where she goes off for this adventure, Peak District and all over, and I can't go with her. So the idea is that if we can do Snowdon together, but she doesn't have to push me in any way, I can have full independence from the get-go and get all the way to the summit without even being pushed or assisted in any way. Yeah. It's empowering for me to think that I've achieved it. And it would just be a really good statement that, if you can start putting, people in wheelchairs on top of mountains using just tech and tech alone, that's kind of amazing. And then we'll just pick different, bigger one and go and do that one after.
Brilliant. Oh, we wish you the best of luck with it as well. And I know our audience will want to follow you on that. And you've given our audience some really great tech challenges to work with in the future as well. It is so brilliant to see you, David. You are always an inspiration. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Cheers, thank you.
It's worth saying, Bobby, isn't it? It's fundamental to all engineering and all design that the people who are going to use the technology have to be part of the process.
Absolutely. And again, I, for one, am sort of looking forward to seeing you, David, plant a flag on top of Snowdon. And we're going to try and master its true Welsh name, Wyddfa, by then.
Say it again.
Wyddfa.
Pretty good. I think that sounds very good. Now, David just mentioned a bag that could clip onto the back of his wheelchair. Well, the manufacturer of that bag, Phoenix Instinct, was recently announced winners of the Toyota Mobility Challenge. They were awarded $1 million to develop their latest project, the Phoenix Eye, the world's first smart wheelchair.
One of the hardest things that wheelchair users face is people's perceptions. Positive perception is really important because it's empowering. I want that first perception anyone has of me and anyone that uses the device that I designed to go, cool. If I take this one out of here. I started Phoenix because I had the idea of suitcases for wheelchair users because you can't carry your stuff. It's very simple. I just clip it onto the chair like that, and that's it. And I can now move around really easily, and the bag follows me just like it's part of the wheelchair. I'm done. I'm on the way off to get a cab. Cheers. I think the best products are developed by the people that use them. I've used a wheelchair for a long time. I'm probably a good person to do it. I remember lying in my bed and the occupational therapist coming in, and she said, Andrew, I've got a new wheelchair for you. And it was this gigantic metal chrome thing. The day I went out in public in that wheelchair for the first time was by miles the worst day of my life, because I felt completely stripped of me. It was now my identifiable feature. What the wheelchair user wants is a viable, practical, lightweight, compact, portable, easy to use, safe, affordable thing. But of course the carbon fibre is not just because it looks cool, it has to be super light, because we've got to add in the motors and the servos and the boards and the batteries and all this stuff. It's about doing something that other people haven't or won't do. This chair is very stable, but very heavy on the front wheels. So what we're doing is creating a centre of gravity that's intelligent. So as the user leans forward, it will move forward with them. As they lean back, it will lean back with them. This is a chair that intelligently is part of the person. The centre of gravity of the human and the chair become one. Undoubtedly, the wheelchair is the most viable means of getting around if you're paralysed. Pushing a wheelchair is quite hard work. There's a perception from wheelchair users that using a power device when you don't really need it is surrender to the battery. It's important for me that the power assist system that we're developing is really discreet, because wheelchair users don't want to be seen to need help. The wheelchair doesn't have to be an inanimate, awkward device. It can actually engage with the person. And if their abilities are enhanced, their confidence is enhanced, and the person has a better lifestyle. That's transformational to the wheelchair user. It's a roller coaster. It's doing this all the time. One day it works, and it looks so promising, and then something stops working, and you just feel gutted. So to see it all come together today is a massive relief. Yeah. It's a lot riding on this. The Phoenix is the mythical bird of fire that can never be destroyed. No matter what happens to it, it just comes back. Seeing those people get that independence, that's why I do this. They wouldn't have got that had I, as a 14-year-old, not made that decision to climb that tree and fall out and break my back. That decision that I've questioned myself so many times, thinking, what were you thinking? Now I look at it and think, maybe I didn't mess up. Maybe good can come from this. We got the chair completed to a usable state a week before the close of the competition. It's no longer an awkward, inanimate box on wheels. I feel engaged with it in a way I've never felt with a chair before. $1 million for Phoenix right now would mean we can continue this development and actually get it to market and get people using it. Smart wheelchairs are here. A new era has begun.
Oh,
Amazing.
amazing. Congratulations to Phoenix Instinct. Hopefully we'll see the finished wheelchair on the streets soon. Still to come, not only a medical doctor, but also founder of the Centre for Health and Human Performance, Jack loves all things technology, especially to do with healthcare. It's going to be a fantastic interview.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll hear from Professor Eleanor Stride, a biomedical engineer at Oxford University, who uses bubbles to deliver drugs more accurately in your body.
And here cooking for us will be Great British Bake Off star and Resident 150 show chef Andrew Smyth, who will be showing us how to make a cake that demonstrates buoyancy.
We'll also be speaking to 3 incredible women about the Femtech industry and how they're working on a range of products to help break taboos and empower women.
And stick around to find out what's happening where you are with the weather map of news. Last month, as part of their 150 celebrations, the IET announced 12-year-old CEO of iCode Robots, Callum Daniel, the IET Young STEM Personality of the Year. Well, Callum, we're honoured to have you with us throughout the series. So what have you got in store for us today?
This is the Cola Mento experiment. Chew the Mentos Coca-Cola. Pour them in and let's see what happens. When you add your Mento to the cola, the rough surface of the Mentos attracts all the bubbles, forcing the cola out of the bottle, and whoosh.
Oh, definitely one for outside. Did you see how high that went? Blimey, I'm glad I wasn't under that one.
Yes, it's one for outside rather than inside for sure. Next up, best known for his expertise in exponential healthcare technologies and human performance. As the founder and medical director of the Centre for Health and Human Performance, Dr. Jack Kreindler and his team of leading human performance scientists have been helping patients to achieve better outcomes.
They offer patients the same care, attention and cross-disciplinary input as an Olympian or celebrity sports star would receive, and have worked with international athletes across 2 Olympic Games and celebrities such as the boxer Anthony Joshua, Davina McCall, John Bishop, Idris Elba, Greg James, Joe Brand, Sarah Cox.
That is some list. Welcome to the show,
Welcome, Jack.
Thank you very, very much for having me. It's a huge privilege to be here.
Not only are you the Director of Health Optimization, but you're also a medical technology entrepreneur. So where did the story start for you?
It actually started whilst I was moonlighting at a place called the Digital Village. Whilst I was still a medical student, well, I've always been playing around with computers, but I was moonlighting for Douglas Adams, the guy who wrote The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and he decided to create the first Wikipedia, which was The Hitchhiker's Guide Online, and I was somehow roped into designing the whole user experience and user interface for that, and kind of got into tech in a big way then, realizing that medicine was going to change, because I did my first Google search sitting next to him and stuff, so I realized that the world was going to be a very different place.
And you still continue to research the very latest advancements, don't you, in healthcare and medical technology from across the globe. Tell us a bit about what you're working on now.
Obviously, there was a pandemic, if no one heard, and I actually decided to put an awful lot of effort into seeing how technology could prepare us for coming out of the pandemic. And so start a little voluntary group to see how we could better, faster and cheaper get people's COVID status securely and privately better known, well understood, transferable and understandable, to get us back into things like live events, to get us safely through border control, to help us see our parents and grandparents and so on. So that's a big bit of work that we're doing right now, which is kind of going rather well.
Good.
Well done.
Glad to hear it.
Well done. Yeah. So your job is completely about the positives and helping patients achieve better outcomes. But I can imagine that at times this can be quite challenging. So what is it about your job that you find most rewarding?
The stuff that I guess find the most rewarding is on two scales. One is where we can turn something that's very boutique, like what we do, with a few people, and help scale that with technology. So hundreds, thousands, millions more people than we could possibly see in our four walls can be helped, and that kind of gives me great joy. The other thing is kind of using the sorts of things that help people win gold medals at an individual level, but then use that to help people going through the very toughest health challenges like cancer, for them to be able to get through what could potentially be a difference between life and death.
Yeah, I guess that's the wonderful thing about the wider field of medtech within engineering. It's challenging but so rewarding. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Jack.
Thank you for having
lovely
me.
to have you here in the studio with us as well.
Yeah.
Oh, never a truer word spoken. Brilliant. What a great
Absolutely.
guest. Now, Professor Eleanor Stride, a biomedical engineer at Oxford University and winner of the IET's A.F. Harvey Prize in 2014, is really at the cutting edge of engineering and who really is transforming medicine. Her research uses bubbles to target the delivery of drugs more accurately in your body in order to minimise the exposure to healthy tissue. And earlier this year, I had the pleasure of speaking to her about her amazing work.
We need brilliant minds of the future to get on board as early as possible and help us solve these problems. I think it's absolutely vital we stop people thinking that we run around in boiler suits with hard hats. We do when needed, but that isn't all we do. I think that the more we can basically put Lego into primary schools and get people making things, building things, solving problems, and conveying that excitement. And it's not just sitting in a physics classroom learning equations, which it really isn't. And I think one of the things that a lot of my PhD students find is that they've gone through their careers up to now doing experiments that other people have done, and they work. And then they hit their PhD and nothing works. It's a horrible shock.
What's next for you in terms of your work?
So we've got a lot of projects going on, which we've tried to keep going through COVID. So I think we've got a few things that are on the brink of going into the clinic. And again, we have a trial hopefully starting in London soon for delivering antibiotics. So this is for antibiotic resistant infections, which we're having some manufacturing challenges at the moment.
I wonder why.
Actually real engineering problems. But I'm sure we will get there. So that's very, very exciting because that's something that's taken 10 years and a very big multidisciplinary team, and we're very close to that going into the clinic. We've similarly got a project with pancreatic cancer with colleagues in Northern Ireland. This is a new type of drug that only becomes active when you expose it to ultrasound, so it's got very, very low toxicity. So again, we're sort of hopefully about a year away there. I'd hoped it would be less, but we've obviously been set back a bit by COVID. And then we also have some rather crazy stuff on oxygen delivery, which is quite exciting, which we have already tried in some healthy human volunteers that seems to be working. So these are very, very tiny bubbles of oxygen that can temporarily elevate oxygen levels, and that allows us to treat more effectively, because one of the big challenges with not only with cancer, actually with quite a few different diseases, is the levels of oxygen in tissue drop really, really low, and the cells then become very resistant to treatment. So we're hoping this is a way of overcoming that and making the treatments work better. But yeah, the thing they don't teach you in an engineering degree is all of the regulatory hurdles that you have to cross. So you get the science sorted, and then right, here come the lawyers, which I mean is absolutely right. We need procedures and processes to make sure these things are safe and that everyone has gone through these regulatory procedures, but they are very slow, painful and expensive.
Yes, yeah.
As we sort of alluded to, it's the end goal that draws you in. I mean, hopefully you'll enjoy the journey as well, but it's what you're applying your problem solving skills to that's the exciting bit. And so I think it's searching around to find that, and play, build stuff, break stuff, take things apart. Get interested in why it works. And please don't see science as a massive exercise in memory, because it really isn't, and it really shouldn't be.
Yeah, great advice.
Creative problem solving. I mean, I get asked a lot, what's the difference between a scientist and an engineer, which is very difficult because it's not even a blurred boundary. It's a sort of fluid boundary that moves all the time. But I think scientists come at it from they're trying to answer questions. Engineers come at it, we're trying to solve problems. But we desperately need each other.
Yes, yeah. It's that partnership approach, isn't it? That's
absolutely. Yeah.
She's such an incredible inspiration. It was so great to talk to her. And anything that can reduce the side effects whilst increasing the efficiency in cancer treatment has to be a great thing, doesn't it? So coming up, we're talking all things Femtech, from wearables to discreet breast pumps. We'll be highlighting a range of products helping to break down taboos.
Fantastic. And we'll also be bringing you some incredible engineering stories from around the globe with the weather map of news, so stick around. Are you a baker, Dan?
Well, I made a Gruffalo cake a couple of weeks ago with my daughter, but I'm not sure that qualifies me. You?
Not a chance.
Really?
But luckily for us, we have Andrew, who's with us here just around the corner in our Savoy Place kitchen. Andrew, most of our audience will know you from the Great British Bake Off, but you're also an aerospace engineer. Andrew, what have you got planned for us today?
So today I'm going to be looking at mechanical engineering, and specifically, how can I make a boat totally edible? I'm talking about something that might be able to sail across a lake on your table and deliver some delicious goods, that kind of thing. And I'm going to show you how to make one at home. And as far as I'm concerned, there are 3 things needed to qualify as a boat. It needs to be waterproof, first and foremost. It needs to be buoyant, and it also needs to be stable. So let's look at those in turn. First thing is waterproofness. And when you think of edible things, quite often they tend to absorb water, or what we call hydrophilic. So if you've ever stirred salt into a mug of water or sugar into cream or anything like that, it dissolves really readily. It loves to attract moisture. What we really want is something that's quite high in fat, which is naturally hydrophobic, so it repels water. And actually, chocolate is a really good place to start. So have a look at this. I've just got an ordinary shop-bought bar of chocolate and dip it into the water. The water just runs off. It actually beads and is repelled, and it's because of the really high fat content. The major component in chocolate is cocoa butter, which is hydrophobic. It's a bit like how oil and water don't really like to mix. And you might have seen this if you've been in the park and there's a really waxy leaf that the water runs off, or if you've bought a brand new non-stick pan, the water beads on the surface. So if you have that high contact angle with the water and the surface, generally means it's pretty waterproof. So how does it do as a boat? A little bit disappointing. It's not very buoyant. It's quite dense. And when it comes to buoyancy, density is really important. Chocolate is more dense in its solid bar form than water, so it plunges straight to the bottom. So can we do any better? What can we eat that's less dense than water and is going to be a lovely buoyant boat? Well, you might be one step ahead of me here, but we can use a composite of marshmallows and Rice Krispies, held together by this marshmallow and butter matrix, and then all these air-filled Rice Krispies in lots of little pockets. So let's see how this works on the water. In it goes. Look at that, like a little raft. So it's so light, about half of it is above the waterline. But if you've ever eaten a bowl of Rice Krispies, you'll know that it starts to absorb the liquid. So we'll keep an eye on it, but I anticipate that's going to start looking a little bit sad. So in a way, we want to take the waterproof properties of the chocolate and the buoyancy of the Rice Krispie and combine them together. So how can we do it? Well, I'm going to show you. Let's start with how you make the Rice Krispie composite. You are going to need 100 grams of marshmallows, any colour you like, 25 grams of butter and 75 grams of Rice Krispies. First thing you're going to want to do is melt together your marshmallows and your butter. So just pop those together and then just pop those in the microwave, just in 20-second blasts until it's totally melted. I'm going to go and do that now. I'll be right back. Cool, so that's totally melted, marshmallows and the butter. So just give that a little mix together until it's uniform. It starts to smell really good at this point. You're going to add your 75 grams of Rice Krispies and then just work those together. So your Rice Krispies are really what keep it buoyant, and your marshmallow is effectively the glue here and it's going to help it set into a shape. Now, because I want something a bit boat-like, I'm using a mold. This is just a tureen mold, and I've just put a bit of cling film on the inside. But this is quite nice because it's got a nice round base, a bit like a boat hull. And then I'm going to tip my marshmallow composite quite quickly into my mold before it sets. And then just gently tease it into all the corners of your mold. And this will set up in about 5 minutes, 10 minutes in a cold fridge. And after that, you can just slice it into 3 individual boats in this case. This will make about 3 little mini rafts. And usually I just pull the cling film up over the top just to press it down nice and evenly. And then just pop that in the fridge to set. Okay, so 10 to 15 minutes in the fridge, and this is now solidified. So if you just peel back that top layer of cling film, and then you can just tip it out onto a chopping board. It might still be a little bit sticky, that's fine. Just, oh, out it comes. And then just peel back very gently. And then once it's sliced, it can go back into the fridge for a little bit afterwards. So all I'm going to do is just cut this into 3 little boats, back into the fridge with those, and then all I'm going to do afterwards is melt a bit of chocolate and paint that on top. And like any good Blue Peter presenter, I've got one I made earlier. So I've got a few of these that I made earlier on, and let's just see how this performs over in our tub over here. Now, let's revisit the Marshmallow Crispy on its own. It looked fine earlier, but actually, come and have a look at this. It's got a bit lower in the water. I can see quite a bit of Rice Krispie debris floating around, and actually, when I lift it up, oh gosh, the whole thing is disintegrating and falling apart. It's a pretty sad boat, so we'll leave that there, but its composite counterpart is much better. Here it goes. Look at that. Like a proper little boat. It's waterproof. You can actually see under the waterline that the water is beading. It just runs straight off. Waterproof. Waterproof, buoyant. What's our third thing? Stability. So I actually made a few of these with different shaped hulls. And if you wanted to transport something across the table, you really want to think about the shape of your hull. Because actually, something that's hemispherical isn't the best way to go. And the way to think about this is if you were holding a spatula. So in this case, I'm holding it at the top. The center of gravity acts as a correcting force. So if I was to disturb it, it returns it to its original position. If I was to hold it at the middle, then when a disturbance comes along, we call that neutrally stable rather than stable because it stays in the new position. If I was holding it at the base, then it's unstable because then it's going to fall over. And the same thing happens when it comes to boat hulls. Boats have a center of gravity, which you want to be lower in general for things to be stable, but they also have what we call a center of buoyancy, and that's the equivalent of where I'm holding my spatula, and that's where the buoyancy force of the water acts through. So what you want from a boat hull is when it starts to tilt sideways, more of the hull goes into the water on one side to correct and float it back up, to act as a correcting force. You don't really get that with a hemispherical hull. You get it a lot more with something like a V-shaped hull, or if you want to go for maximum stability, just go for a flat raft. In the real world, you've got to go for a balance of stability and speed, which is why you'll see a lot of boats with something that looks like a V-shaped hull. But they will all very happily bob along in the water. I hope you enjoy creating some edible boats at home too.
Oh God, definitely, that's incredible. What a great way of demonstrating buoyancy.
That was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Thanks, Andrew.
As awareness and movements over gender inequalities progress, a new female health technology market has risen, more simply known as the Femtech market. With more than 50% of the world's population being female, efficient female healthcare is an urgent necessity.
Women of Wearables, or WOW, is a global organisation with the aim to inspire, connect and support women and allies in emerging technologies, such as wearable tech, IoT, health tech and everything in between. In 2018, founder and CEO Maria Butkovich was selected as one of the top 50 most influential women in the UK tech by Computer Weekly. And she joins us today. WOW is such an amazing organisation. Tell us about your inspirational company. What is Women of Wearables and what does it do?
Thank you for having me. So Women of Wearables is a leading global organisation, first one actually, that is bringing together women and allies in emerging technologies. And we started in 2016 as a very small meetup group. And over the years, we became this massive global movement with more than 20,000 members now in almost 50 countries. So WOW started as a very small meetup group, but now we are doing lots of things, including virtual events, webinars, community building, content creation. And we are really trying to support women and everyone else basically who wants to promote women's rights in the world of technology and business. So we can create more jobs for women in STEM, more opportunities, get more funding to women, really support female entrepreneurs, I would say, in every possible way.
What is next for you? Any new exciting plans we could break to the world?
I would say personally for me, for now, I want to stay at WOW and build the community even more. Something that WOW has enabled me to do is really to have freedom and really good work-life balance, I would say. And a really good thing that came from WOW is actually me becoming a contributor for Forbes. Last year, I was approached by a European editor, and based on my previous work in tech and community building with WOW, I was asked to become contributor to write for Forbes Women division about, female-led businesses, female successes in tech and business. So I said yes. So that was a really incredible milestone for me, career-wise. Maybe one day become an angel investor and invest actually financially in female-led businesses besides being just startup mentor and advisor, which I'm now. So yeah, I'm not planning too much. I think the right opportunity comes when you least expect it. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Maria, for joining us. It's been so great to talk to you. You are such a difference maker.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Incredibly important work and just amazing enthusiasm she's got.
Totally.
Yeah. Now, keeping to the Femtech topic, our next guest is the wonderful 2020 Women Engineering Society Prize winner.
El-Attar was named as Young Woman of the Year by the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, and in 2018 was named in the BBC list of 100 most influential women in the world.
Welcome to the fabulous Shruk. You are truly such a difference maker, and I'm so pleased you're with us. You are creating amazing technology that really positively impacts the lives of so many people. I mean, we're talking about millions of people around the world. Tell us about the tech.
Yeah, so I make things like smart wearable silent breast pumps that are actually made for humans, and it's not just something that looks like it's been copy-pasted from what we have for cows.
Yeah.
I also, yes.
That's so true.
I know, it took 160 years just to get something that works for human beings, for human mothers. But also some of the other things I work on are smart pelvic floor trainers, again, for women, for people, for humans. And what I really love about this is actually around 80% of people who give birth suffer from incontinence, but it's a big taboo. People don't feel comfortable discussing it. So people who experience that, A, don't feel like they can talk to anybody about it, and B, don't know that it's something that can happen to them until it does. Yeah. So it's just amazing to be an engineer in that Femtech space.
Yeah, you were an amazing engineer.
Absolutely, they're such brilliant projects. Can you tell us what you're working on at the moment? Like, what's in sort of your plan board?
I would love to tell you so much about what I work on right now. I can't talk too much about it, but I can tell you, just keep an eye on LV's Instagram page, and I'm sure there's loads of exciting stuff coming out soon. But I can talk to you about things I do outside of LV if that's something you're interested in.
Do it, yeah.
So, of course, the pandemic has been a really difficult time for a lot of families. It's been really, really, really hard. It's also a time that I just feel so proud to be an engineer because it means that I can help in ways that other people can't. So I joined a team of volunteer engineers at Helpful Engineering, and together I've developed a completely open source emergency COVID-19 ventilator to be used in the developing world and the United States.
Wow.
Yeah, it's called OpenVent. Do check it out.
Oh my goodness. Do you know, my next question was going to be, what do you love most about your job? But, I mean, is that it? You know, that's got to be high up on your list, isn't it?
Well, yes, of course. I love that I get to transform people's lives for a living. That's number one. I also just love that I get given a problem and just go and get asked to solve it. I get paid to solve a puzzle, something that LV, in the LV culture is a lot of the time they'll be like, we need to solve X, Y, Z within X budget. You've got a week, off you go. And I love that.
That's so creative, isn't it?
And that's the thing, you know, because I am an artist as well and an engineer. But the creativity I learned from being an artist is indispensable in the engineering world.
Wow. I love it, combining the two, the Venn diagram intersection, artist, engineer, Shrook is right there.
In the middle, absolutely, in the middle.
And you recently won the WS Prize at our 2020 Young Woman Engineer of the Year Awards. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So what do you now hope to achieve with this platform you've been given?
So I am starting a new series really soon, and it's called Shriekytronics, also sponsored by RS Grassroots Education, and it's the Shrieky Show about electronics, as it says on the can. So,
Yay, that's brilliant. Oh, we shall look forward to that. Shrook, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
You really are such a difference maker, and we are honoured that you are the WES 2020 prize winner. It is so lovely to see you. You are an absolute star. Thank you.
Thank you.
And from one star to another. Our next guest, while studying biomedical engineering at the University of Barcelona, came across a report that revealed nearly 40% of women skipped breast cancer screening, possibly leading to at least a third of cancers being detected too late.
Through her research, she later learned that around 94% of breast cancers detected by mammograms were essentially false alarms. Determined to address this issue, whilst also making screening more accessible to women, our guest drew from her interest in biology to come up with the concept of the blue box, an at-home breast cancer screening device. Joining us now, beaming into the studio, is Judith Giraud-Bennett. Hi, Judith. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you. Let's start with the blue box. Tell us about the blue box. How does it work?
Well, the blue box is actually a box that has some sensors inside that are specific for breast cancer biomarkers, meaning that when you introduce one urine sample inside the box, those sensors are going to react differently depending on the composition of your urine. And then an artificial intelligence algorithm that is on the cloud will know if it's possible that you might have breast cancer or not.
Wow, that's incredible, isn't it?
Really.
Absolutely incredible. What inspired you to create the blue box?
Well, I think that what inspired me was actually one of the most beautiful lessons I ever had in my life. And it was that dogs are able to smell cancer. Dogs have unlocked a mystery that we humans have been trying to unlock for so many years. So I think that what I learned out of that is that sometimes we engineers, the best way we have to create the best design, the finest technology, is to observe nature and translate nature into electronics.
Yeah. Amazing.
So Judith, what sort of, obviously you're trying to get this to market. What difficulties are there in this process?
The whole system is based on artificial intelligence. And while AI is really fun because it really has not much limits, it does has one limitation, which is the number of samples that we are able to get. So if we are able to collect 1,000 or hopefully even more samples, we will be able to train the blue box. So we are now looking for hospitals, like everyone in the world really, that want to join the study, that want to help us, that want to provide patients, that give us their urine sample to help us train more this artificial intelligence algorithm that hopefully not that far in the future, we'll be able to diagnose you with healthy or breast cancer.
Brilliant. So that's a good call out. If you're working in hospitals and you want to help out or you're watching this, please do get in touch with Judith.
Yes.
What amazing technology. Thank you so much. You've been a fantastic guest. Thank you for joining us, Judith.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
What a hugely inspiring story.
Amazing.
I really do want to see those blue boxes everywhere.
Absolutely.
In every home. Well, now it's time to head over to Mark the Sunshine Reynard to find out what else has been happening around the world with his weather map of news.
Thanks, Dan. Hopefully not too sunny, otherwise I'll have to be wearing a hat with this head. Well, things have certainly been hot this last month in the world of engineering and technology, with some great stories. So let's see where our globe stops for our first one. And here it is, it's the USA and it's Iowa, where a 17-year-old high schooler, Dacia Taylor, has just invented a life-saving surgical suture that changes colour when a wound becomes infected. This is a cost-effective way to detect surgical infections and will be incredibly useful in developing nations where access to smart technology is pretty limited. Here now in the UK, a student at Loughborough University has designed a robotic guide dog that helps support visually impaired people who are unable to house a real animal. The product replicates the functions of a guide dog as well as programming quick and safe routes to destinations using real-time data. And now staying in the UK, and it's up to Scotland, where engineers at the University of Glasgow have developed sweat-powered smartwatches. They've replaced electrolytes found in conventional batteries with sweat, and the watch can be fully charged with as little as 20 microlitres of fluid. Over now to China, and it's in China where a company's working on 3D printed houses, and recently they managed to create 10 house 3D printed villages in under a day. Imagine how quickly towns and cities could be built one day just using 3D printing. I'm sure we'll be hearing and seeing more of this in the next few years. And finally, back here in the UK, a smart needle's been developed by scientists that could really speed up cancer detection and their diagnosis times. The new device uses a technique known as Raman spectroscopy to shine a low-power laser into the part of the body being inspected, with the potential to spot concerns within seconds. We always love hearing your stories, so if you have any news stories you'd like us to feature in the future, we'd love to hear from you. Well, Dan, Bobby, it's back to you.
Thanks, Mark. Some great stories there. Well, folks, that's about it for today. Dan, it's been a whirlwind dash around the globe. Some amazing stories.
Amazing stories, absolutely. It's what makes the world of engineering and tech so exciting. Everything we touch has been created somehow, and engineers and technologists are the forgotten part of that story. So thank you to everyone who was tuned in, and we'll see you again tomorrow for another hour of difference makers on a completely different theme. Thank you, Bobby, for guiding me through.
No, thank you. Have a safe rest of your day and see you at the same time tomorrow, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.